Let's start laying down, because it's always a nice way to start, isn't it? I'll water everywhere. Oh, yes. Stay here, the whole class. So just bringing your awareness into your body. You can have knees bent up, or you can take the legs down. You don't have to do the same thing as me, I always give you little choices. And just letting your body sink down into the ground. And let the back of the body be heavy. So feeling a heaviness in the back of the body. Where it's in contact with the floor, you can feel it kind of spreading out and slightly squished. And in contrast, the front of the body is not squished. So it feels lighter. Back of the body, let it feel heavy. Front of the body is light. And then the back of the body, because it's in contact with the mat, it's kind of insulated. So back of the body warm. Front of the body, probably still warm, but a little bit cooler, because you can feel that interplay with the air with the front of the body. We're in contact with the atmosphere. So back of the body warm, feel that warmth. Front of the body cool. There might be a couple of cool patches on the back of the body, maybe the back of your neck. And the backs of the fingers if they're curling up, maybe other places too. Front of the body a bit cooler. And then let's bring our awareness to the breath in the nostrils. And we can discern, just from that little tiny bit of breath, just as it comes into the nostrils, we can feel that that air that we're breathing out is dry and cool. You can feel it drying out your nose when you breathe in. And then you can feel when you breathe out that that air is warm, probably warmer than the air that you're breathing out. And that you're breathing out moisture. And depending on where you are and what kind of environment your house is, you might be able to sort of feel that kind of heated air. If you've got the heating on, it feels very dry. Also, all of us, however clean we are, because we're indoors, there's going to be more particles in the air, more sort of dusty particles. So you can feel that dust as you breathe in. You can detect that kind of, that you're indoors, not necessarily dusty. If it's somewhere really dusty, you can feel that, but you can tell that you're not outside. You could tell. So if you've been kidnapped, oh God, here we go, she's off. If you've been kidnapped and you were blindfolded, you'd be able to tell, even if you had like headphones on and stuff, so you couldn't hear. You'd be able to tell that you were indoors just from that breath at the nostrils. And then also we can smell, but usually we don't really smell the smell of our houses. Everyone's house has a special smell, doesn't it? When you go around to a friend's house, it has it smells of like their house. But when you've been in the environment for a long time, you can't smell that smell that everyone else can smell. But sometimes if there's, something in the air, maybe you could smell something. Like when I was running this morning through through the trails. It was cold, it was 9 degrees, it's coldest run I've done since the spring. But there's patches of sort of warmth and coolness, and you can really tell when you're breathing through your nose that really warm air, much more comfortable than the cold air. And where there's kind of patches of sunlight that kind of makes a kind of warmth hang in the air, especially when it's early morning and the mist kind of traps the warmth or the coldness. And there's real kind of patches of quite really chilly bits, and then running through bits that are warm. You can really feel that from your nostrils. Anyway, also you can feel that when you breathe in through your nose, even though you're just breathing softly, that there's a force behind it. It's greater than when you breathe in and out through your mouth. Because just, you know, past the nostrils, there's like a shell-like sort of vortex, sort of turbine of the nose, and that kind of spherical sort of maze type kind of seashell-y shape speeds up the flow of air and draws it in deep down into the lower lobes of your lungs. That's why it's good to breathe in and use your nostrils. Nasal breathing is very healthy. But you may be able to feel that kind of gentle pull and strength. In fact, you could alternate. You could try breathing through your mouth, and you could have a hand on your chest, and you'll find when you breathe through your mouth, the chest will move. That means you're breathing quite shallowly. When you breathe through your nose, you can feel that it's pulling the air down deep. It's really healthy. It means that it's also using your diaphragm. When you do that mouth breath, it's turning into a breathing practice now, but you can feel that it's just up in the upper chest. Because usually, naturally, mammals only breathe through their mouth when they're very hot or, you know, stressed, or they're really trying to get in extra oxygen because they're, you know, running or whatever. The healthiest way to breathe is to use that primary breathing muscle, diaphragm. So anyway, the out breath now. You don't really need to do anything. When you breathe in, you just let go and that breath just flows out. There's no force or anything to it. It's just simply every muscle that's contracted with you breathing in is just relaxing back into place. And that's what makes the air come out. So there's enough information there at the nostrils to keep you occupied for quite a long time. I mean, we've been maybe 8 minutes just looking at this. So just a few more moments quiet and still. So there's always enough stuff going on to keep your mind from wandering off and keep you in that present moment. And that's all meditation is really. It's being in that here and now. And just watching something that's quite simple, not complex. Okay, let's have a stretch. Real tensy stretch. The juices that you're yawning at the side. And then just let yourself go. So don't necessarily let your arms, don't bring them anywhere. Just let them relax after you've stretched, and they'll go into their most comfortable position. They'll roll out to the side. You'll kind of shrink back into shape. Legs are doing the same. And then we'll bring the feet onto the floor, and we'll bring the arms down by our sides. So I've been doing quite a lot of knee stuff this week, and we kind of started with stretching. So I thought maybe we'll add a little bit of a strength element into the knee stuff today. But let's start with a simple warming up of the legs and the knees. So without touching, we're just going to bend these in towards the chest and just start to take the legs up towards the ceiling. And we're just going to bend and lengthen. Don't like to say straighten because it's very hard to straighten your legs when we're not walking around and when they're working against gravity, because they're a heavier load. And if I was to say bend and straighten, it would make you think that the goal was to have straight legs, and it's not. We just want to sort of test out and let the legs be comfortable and just see where they want to go. And my legs don't want to straighten, but when we walk around, the legs straight. We don't walk around with bent knees like those Japanese robots. And how quick those legs get quite heavy. So yeah, this is getting quite intense now. Notice where it's making you feel tired. It's making me tired in kind of the thighs in general. And then bring feet onto the ground. Come into constructive rest, knees together, feet wide. Just notice how the legs are feeling. So that could include feet and ankles, calves, knees, thighs. We're all going to be hit by that practice differently. It could even be hip stuff as well, or even something else I haven't mentioned. So just feel that warmth. It feels a bit warmer now, and any sort of throbbing, tingling, pulsing in those legs. Okay, we're going to do an ankle warm up as well because we're going to be using the ankles. So we'll take both legs up. I mean, I've got my socks on, which is a sackable offence for a yoga teacher, but we're not standing up or anything, and I don't care. So we're going to be pointing, and then big toes facing towards each other, pointing, and then flexing back, big toes still looking towards each other, and then pointing straight back, and then slight little angle, so shins are still, up and little toes outermost, up pointing, so you're like a ballerina. Then the big toes having a little nod towards each other, flexing the feet the other way, big toes still nodding towards each other, straight towards you, little toes out but pointing up, straight pointing, pointing big toes in, flexing big toes in, straight flexing, flexing little toes out, pointing little toes out, pointing straight up. Let's change direction. Let's do 3 in this other direction, just by yourself. Make sure your shins aren't moving because otherwise it means that you're just exercising your hips. And we'll do those later. So I thought we'd do some knees over toes stuff today. Oh, and then another little rest. Oh. Constructive rest. See how that feels, because then obviously those legs have had to work again. But it's quite a nice trick to do if you're concentrating on something. It makes you forget that something else is getting tired. Okay, and then we're going to flex at the hips. So we're going to bring the knees in towards the chest. You can have a gap between the knees, or you can have the knees together. We're going to be taking a breath in, and then as we breathe out, we're going to bring head towards the knees, and we'll do that 3 times, and then we'll do it again, and we'll hold it for a few breaths, sort of breathing with the head towards the knees. Okay, so taking hold of the legs, you can hold the backs of the legs or the shins, whichever you prefer. We'll take a breath in, and we'll breathe out. I have a yawn. need to breathe in will come down. So why do I sometimes teach breathing and sometimes don't? It's just 'cause it's quite useful to know that you don't want to be breathing in when you're drawing your head towards your body. Let's do it again. Breathe out. So you want to make room for that air, and also it's going to be comfortable doing it this way. So you probably naturally are doing it like that. Let's do it again. Breathe out. So we're really flexing our hips. It's quite nice. We're going to do one more and hold it for a few breaths. Breathe in, breathe out. And when we let go, we're going to squeeze our hips towards us. We're going to try and really squeeze our hips, keep them squeezed towards our belly as we let go and the belly comes away. Try and really squeeze your hips towards your belly. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Keep squeezing for 5. As if you're trying to squish something in that crease there. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Put my feet back on the floor. Either constructive rest or stretch out. I feel like I want to stretch out the legs. I've got a very watery eye today. A couple more breaths. Okay, and then we're going to come up to sitting this week on this kind of series. I usually do classes in a series of 3. A yin, oh no, 4 actually. A yin, to have the normal yoga practices and a kin stretch. We've been looking at knees, and we've been doing this warm up, and we're just going to carry doing this warm up. So we're going to relax the legs, we're going to do kneecap moving. So we're just going to, so I've seen people do lots of things today, lots of things where they're just on the kneecap and they just kind of wibble it. You want to have the kneecap between your fingers here, and then you're just going to gently move it up and down. And just notice how it feels. So sometimes there might be some grittiness, or it might be very smooth. See, and it can be different every day. So every time I've done this week so far, apart from today, both of the knees up and down have felt gritty, and now today only one of them feels gritty, the other one's nice and smooth. Okay, and then side to side. So yeah, it can differ day to day, as long as when you're doing this it doesn't hurt. And then you'll get people say, I can't move my kneecaps, because you haven't got hold of your kneecaps. I did have a student once who didn't have kneecaps, born without kneecaps, and she managed just as well as anyone else. Okay, diagonal. And then diagonal the other way. We're just making sure this movement is nice and free and easy. We're not trying to force, we're not trying to take it to the biggest range of motion or anything. Being quite gentle until you kind of get to know what your kneecaps like to do. I know some people don't like to do this. Round and round, 3 times each way. 3 times the other way. So very mobile, the kneecaps. They move a lot when we bend the knees. When we bend the knees, that kneecap slides right forward a lot. When we tense our legs, it slides up. Okay, getting a bit obsessed. I'm feeling compelled to take my socks off now, so I'm going to take my socks off. You could keep them on. I mean, I don't mind if people keep their socks on the whole class, as long as they are responsible for anything that might happen. Okay, now we're going to do that rotational knee stuff, because I think it's quite important thing to train, but it can be quite boring, so I've tried to make it more exciting by introducing the bricks in this week. So just going to have 1 foot on the floor, closed chain movement, and this other leg, if that's not comfortable to have your knee bent, you can have the leg out. Just sit any way you want, really. I'm sitting on my block as well. And then you want to try and see if you can kick the brick, but I don't want you to just do this, whereas you could, you know, move quite a lot. You want to make it so that this is to help you make sure that you're going as far as you can each time, because you've got that goal of kicking the brick. But you want to do it from this rotational, oh nice clip, rotational thing here, without moving their thigh. Now I found this week that some people can find it quite difficult keeping the thigh still when we elevate and move. So just really try and keep hold of that thigh and just keep an eye on that you're not moving from the thigh, because otherwise it's just your hip is doing the movement rather than that shin, which rotates when your knee is bent. This doesn't rotate when your leg is locked, when you've locked your leg. Okay, talking a lot. Okay, let's go. Out, touch your brick, in, touch your brick, out, touch your brick, in, touch your brick. So that heel stays on the floor as if you pinned it to the ground, staked it to the ground, through the ground. Out, in, out, touch your brick, in. Stay in, we're going to raise, go out, down, in, up, out, down, in, up, out, down, stay out and down, up, in, down, out, up, in, down, out, up, in, down, out. Last one, up, in, down, out. Let's do the other one. So just check out where you can get to, keeping that thigh still. Set yourself up. Okay, ready? Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, stay in, up, out, down, in, up, out, down, in. So when we raise the leg, try and keep trying to go in as much as you can, try and go out as much as you can. You can test how out you went when the heel comes back onto the ground. Can you rotate out anymore? Probably can. In, up, out, down, stay out, up, in, down, out, up, in, down, out, up, in, down, out. Good. Okay, take a little rest. So during the practice, there's going to be sort of clinks, clunks, cracks, maybe some quite loud ones when we're doing this stuff. But as long as it doesn't hurt, don't freak out and think that you've done anything bad to yourself, because you probably haven't. You've probably just unstuck some stuff that was all stuck together. So for instance, I've been for a run today, and you know, I'm stuck in tiny little trainers. So now my feet are having the chance of all those bones, all the bones that are in the body, having a chance to spread out. So things are cracking, so things are crunching, but that's normal. Okay. What are we going to do now? How do we plan? Yes. Let's do some downwards facing dog. I'm going to stretch the backs of the knees. I might have to forgo the cardigan. Get out into the world. Oh, the cold. It's not too bad. Not yet, anyway. Okay. doing something very strange. Okay. And just a little walk through the legs, see what's going on. So you can tell a lot by this initial kind of walking. You can tell where you feel tight. We might have any little niggles in the backs of your legs, on your ankles, even your toes. So it's a good little assessment. It's nice to have little assessments before we start loading the body and doing all these things. So it might be thinking, oh, I'm glad I'm doing this today because this needs a stretch out, or you might be thinking, this part of my body is asking to be careful because it's feeling a little bit fragile. Okay, and we want to try and find that stretch in the backs of the knees. So straighter legs, heels towards the ground. To help you with that, you could also walk your feet in a bit. So you could get the heels to the ground, might help you to be able to look out the knees a little bit, keep going with that. Try and find that stretch in the backs of the knees. Could be difficult if you've got very tight like calves or hamstrings. You might just be able to stretch the backs of your hamstrings or the backs of your calves, so don't worry too much. Don't try and overstretch to find that stretch in the knees. Okay, and then coming down for a little rest. We'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to look at our ankle dorsiflexion. So we're going to try and bring that ankle into its most flexed position, but also it's going to be bringing our knee into its most flexed position, and our hip also in our most flexed position. So we're really making ourselves into a zigzag. Zag. Fully zigzag. So find your full zigzag position for your hip, your knee and your ankle, as far as you can go without moving your heel off the ground. And then have a little play with moving that knee towards you, or towards that midline of you and away. Just sitting here, let me change position a bit. I've got my hand here, so you can take the weight out of what you're doing, or you can add more weight by being over that leg. And you can even kind of circle and go backwards and forwards. If that feels all right. If you're not used to doing this, I remember when I first started doing this kind of work, I found it a big stretch in the back of the heel and that Achilles, and that was kind of tight and stopping me. So just notice what's stopping you. You don't want to make things hurt. We want to be at that sort of 4 or 5 out of 10 for stretch. And sometimes you can get into that and you feel, well, it's not anything there. I feel like I just can't go any further. But look what's happening also. My knees are going over my toes quite a lot. So knees do go over the toes naturally when we're in a squat, because this is a squat position. And this is a position that a normal child or human being would be in quite often. It's not an unusual freaky circus thing to do, is it? But yeah, in a lot of fitness classes and a yoga class that I was in on my week off, we were told not to let the knees go over the toes, but then when you're doing a squat, your knees are going to go over your toes. When you're walking up and down the stairs, your knees go beyond the toes as well. Okay, so we're just changing those angles slightly, working on that. And then let's just stretch the legs out, because there's been quite a lot of pressure on that other leg. So even though we've been working on doing that, this has been worked in a different way, isn't it? It's been, the foot's been stretched out instead of flexed, but we were very bent in that knee, and it was kind of against the thigh. Okay, we're going to come into our downwards facing dog again, and this time we're going to do that bent knee. Let me just show you quick. Forget what we're doing. High onto the toes, bending the knees deeply, pushing back, and then maybe stretching the legs in any way. Not really concentrating on kneecaps now. We're just going to be stretching out. So this is where it's useful to have a really grippy mat, because you can't really push against that resistance if your mat is slidey, in which case you need to spend a bit more money on your yoga mats next time you get one, Or you can, a couple of my students have got like that liquid chalk or chalk that you can kind of use to stop your hands from slipping. Okay, let's come into downward facing dog. High onto the toes, push chest back. So we're coming into a deep knee. You could even almost come to the ground if you wanted to do that, or just that deep leapy bend is quite fun. Any of those things if it feels good. Sometimes if you do this far one, you think, oh god, that feels a bit too hazardous. So just see how it feels. Or you might feel, well, I could do one of those, but I don't want to do too many. Just see. Your body just tells you what feels okay. We shouldn't be frightened of our bodies in any way. We shouldn't be frightened of knees going beyond the toes. And then having a rest when you're tired of that. And we're going to go the other side with that squatty position. See how it feels. I mean, should have showed you before you did the first side really, but you could adapt that squatty position if you find it difficult. Just grab something. So you can still do that squatty position. I'm going to just let the other leg bend down and sit on something. And you know, you could have the luxury of 2 bolsters. You could just make it a bit higher if you need to. And you can still do this kind of work and be comfortable. So just seeing what we're like on this side. Just kind of warming up. So I'm going sort of side to side, backwards and forwards, or even circles. Not in any particular pattern or style. So this is going to be good for our hips, knees and our ankles. You've got to keep all these bits strong, because these are the bits that if they're not strong, you know, we're going to fall over when we get older. But falling over is not good. We want to keep ourselves strong and resilient, so that if we did fall over, we'll be just like we were when we were kids, and we just brush ourselves off and put plaster on our knee and off we go. But see how you might be quite tired from doing this, because it might make you feel achy and you need to stretch out. So don't have to do it for too long. Come out anytime you want to stretch the legs out. Okay. Let's come out and stretch the legs out. Look, I've got water today instead of tea. Ease out those ankles. Okay, and I wanted to do some knee strengthening stuff. So I thought what we would do is, first of all, it is a favourite thing to do, we'll sit in Virasana and do the leaning back thing. So you can, where is it? Okay, you could use your bolster for this. If you can't lean back, or if you need some arm extensions, you can lift up. Let's do that first actually. Maybe it might be too strong. Lifting your pelvis up, don't need a bolster necessarily. If you haven't got a bolster to hand, you can put your hands on bricks. If you need a bit more height. So it's like a front hip stretch. It's really stretching into those quads. But it's stretching into the kneecaps as well. Bit of strength work. Keep going. Lifting. 5, 4, 3, 2, it's like camel without the hump, 1, hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, squeeze your bum, 1, and release. So let's release those legs out again. Back into this position again. This time we're going to do the fronts of the feet stretch, so it could be lifting up, or you could be here if it's stretching the front of your feet enough, or just hands back or hands on the bolster. Hold that for a little while, because it is the most fun, isn't it? If you can do it, you can sit this out if it's not an option for you. Okay, and release. Release those legs out. Okay, and then what I thought we would do is a little bit of hip work. So I know, sorry to keep bringing you into this position. I'm gonna. So I thought we'd do this where we're like this, and we sit to the side, move that leg out, and then hands. So we're at the other side. Then back to sitting like this, and then bum over to the opposite side. Legs like this. Legs over. Back to this. And start again. Okay, ready? I'll do this. I'll do it in the back to you so it's easier to see. So hips over to one side, and then separate the legs. And lean back. Keep the heels where they are, so you just kind of go over into that on the other side. And then shift back onto the heels. I'm kind of moving away now. And then go the opposite side. Separate the legs. Over to the other side. Onto the knees. Back to sitting back towards the heels. Back to that first side. Separate the feet. So it's like that deer pose. Keep the heels where they are. You can bring the hands behind. And then forward onto the knees. Big toes together, knees together. And then we go to the other side. To one side. Separate the feet so we come into deer pose. Keep the heels where they are so we can roll to the other side. Lean forward, bring the big toes together, legs together, and that's finished for that one. So we've done it a couple of times to each side. Having a little rest with the legs out if you want. Okay, so that's great for knees, ankles and hips. We should be able to roll around on our feet and hips, because when we get older we lose all that sort of flesh off the sides of our feet. and it becomes thinner, so it becomes a little bit more uncomfortable to do that. Okay, what do I want us to do next? I was thinking about coming from, so just have a little rest. I'm going to show you a few options. So coming from a squat to that leaning back position, to let the knees land. Okay, so we go, and then coming back into the squat position, so you have hands forward, tuck the toes, push. If you wanted to make it harder, you could just lean back, tuck, tuck, back to squat, and so on. If you wanted to make it a lot easier, you can use your bricks to hold on to, like little arm extenders. So it helps you to lower. You can lean on that to lower your knees to the floor and untuck, and then you can use that to tuck the toes under to push. And and then you can stay like that if you can't get your heels to the floor. Lower again, untuck. Okay, do that one. Just until we got achy feet, and then we'll stop and have a rest. So you could do maybe one more, or maybe 4 or 5 more. We won't do too many though, because we want to stay together. It'll be a bloody day. I want to, the thing that I want you to do most is not to thump your knees down. To be able to control, which is going to be using your thighs and your hips, that descent of the legs. Okay, next time you're in Vrasana, in that seated position, you can bring the legs out of that. If you haven't finished already. Let's have a little lie down. Just feel that warmth in the hips and the knees, the feet, and you can definitely feel your toes as well. Tingly toes. Okay, we're just going to do some bridge pose, just because some of the good way to stretch the thighs and tops of the knees. So, feet onto the floor, and then we're just going to start doing some pelvic tilts. Give a nice little break. Tilt on the pelvis, trying to move it on its own. Try and keep your ribs fairly still. Okay, let's start to just lift the bum up, coming into a little bridge and rolling down one vertebra at a time. And notice how your thighs feel. They might feel like really strong and really up for it, or you might think, oh, I can feel that they're feeling a bit tired. So if you decide to retire at any time, that's fine. You can just have a little rest and before we do our lane twists. Next time we come up, we're going to try and do bridge on the toes.
Sorry.
Oh.
Please try again.
Oh gosh, maybe jump. Bloody watch. Bloody Siri. He's always sorry, he never understands. All the way up down the spine. And then let's try it on the heels. Can we do bridge on the heels? One more. And have a little tiny rest. And I'm going to try one-legged bridge, which is really good for your butt. But it's also going to be a little bit of a test for the knees and that. And you can either bring one leg across. I've just brought my foot more to the middle, and then I'm going to bring that other leg across. Or you could take that other leg up towards the ceiling. So I don't know which is going to be. I think this is going to be easier. This is going to be harder. So I'm going to do this one first, just to see how my body reacts to that. And then you can do maybe another one of those, or you could decide that you want to take that leg up. Oh, that's difficult, that's hard. It's a lot more heavy. You might want to come onto the toes. Feels like I can't lift it. Up, lift hips. So it's quite good for hips too. Oh, I can't do it, that's hard. A little bit of constructive rest. Maybe do that on the other side, because I haven't done it at all ever. No, I have, but can't remember the last time I did that. So I'm going to be quite kind of intrepidous and try the easier version first. I'm not just going to, because I just don't know how my body's going to react. I might start to cramp, or I'll be able to do it this side. Or as soon as I said cramp, I'm starting to get cramp in my hamstring. If you start to get cramp in your hamstrings, or just change the angle that you've got your leg out, further away or nearer towards, probably help out a little bit. Oh. Spicy calf, spicy hamstring. Oh. I'm going to do the last two with my leg across, because I'm just feeling cramp everywhere. I find it easiest to have my come onto the ball of my foot. I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere otherwise. Okay. I'm done. We'll just take my legs down and have a rest then. We've got to do a twist. We're going to do a twist. We don't have to, but we're going to. Okay, so feet on the floor. We're going to lift our bum off, just the bum off the ground. Traverse it over to the right and plonk it down. So it's just kind of gone sideways and then gone down. Knees into the chest, and then bring the legs over to the left. Twist. You can turn your head to the right if you want to. Back to the middle. Unsquish yourself. Press into the feet, lift up. Over to the left, traversing, down. Knees in, over to the right. When I tell you to bring your knees in towards your chest, if when you come over you feel a bit too squished, you can always take them down a little bit. Just adjust everything we do so that makes it feel a bit more comfortable for you. Yeah, when we're doing the relaxed stuff, certainly. Okay, back back to the middle. And then I should have said this, but we've been down on the floor for a while. But yeah, we're going to come into Shavasana, but if you need to get a bit warmer, socks and tops, please do. And when we're there, we're going to revisit our knees and see how they feel. Where it feel a bit more locatable on the parts of the knees. Okay, so just relaxing down. So feeling your knees, backs of the knees. Now moving them, just awareness of the backs of the knees. And then kneecaps. Kneecaps themselves, not usually super sensitive, but maybe around the kneecap. That's at the top of the kneecap where that top of that thigh goes in. And then that shin side of the kneecap. See what you can feel there, what's going on there. And then whole body just relaxing, resting. Okay, so just beginning to lengthen and deepen your breath. And when you're feeling a bit more awake, you can let your breathing return to normal, but have a stretch and a yawn. And then one of those little hugs in. And then when you come up to sitting, feel free to try another cross-legged position, or even just have your other leg in front. See if it's feeling any less weird or any easier than it would normally. We can try like a funny cross-legged position. Good. Palms of the hands together and the palm mudra at the heart. Namaste.